Welcome to this roundup of news and polls from Ipsos MORI. And this month we've released the second of our series of testing results with Imperial College London for the NHS, which shows that the virus itself is in decline across the country. We found that only 8 in every 10,000 people had the virus during late June and early July, and the vast majority of those hadn't shown any symptoms at all in the previous week. That, of course, reminds us of the problem of how the disease can spread, with people going around not knowing they've actually got it. But we have found that the R rate is now well below 1, and that means that the disease should continue to decline. And our prevalence testing is an important part of understanding what is happening with this disease. The challenge, I think, in terms of public opinion is that concern about the virus remains at record levels, and if anything, ahead of where it was in May. And in terms of the challenges facing the country, the coronavirus is now up there with things like the poll tax and unemployment in previous recessions, with 3/4 of us saying it's the biggest problem facing the country, dwarfing concerns about the economy, although concern about unemployment is now at the highest it's been for years, and it will only go higher. And the challenge in terms of getting out of this is that only around half the population say they'd be likely to get a vaccine against it. And that refusal is often linked to scepticism about science and indeed about authority generally, rather than just not being worried about the pandemic. We should keep this in some context because there's similar numbers in terms of how people feel about the flu vaccine, but there are 16% of people who say they aren't going to take the vaccine under any circumstances, and a lot of those are people who rely on social media or WhatsApp for their information, which just shows us some of the challenges ahead in terms of getting our way out of this crisis. One thing that does seem to be working is the government's Eat Out to Help Out scheme. 11 million times it's been used in its first week. And Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, remains the most popular politician in terms of how he's handling the crisis, up there with the Chief Medical Officer for England. Both of those have around 6 out of 10 people who are positive about what they've been doing. Ratings of the government and Boris Johnson are much more polarised, with around 4 out of 10, just over 4 out of 10 positive, but also the same proportion negative. And the same numbers really hang there in terms of how Boris Johnson is regarded. On a straight comparison with Keir Starmer, on one measure, Keir Starmer is doing better because he has many fewer people who say they're dissatisfied with his performance, and a similar number who are satisfied with how he does his job as leader of the opposition. But the challenge for Keir Starmer is that 5 times more people say they just don't know about what he's doing, and that shows the challenge that he has, and indeed the Labour Party has, in achieving cut-through and perceived relevance to voters at this time. Overall, although Keir Starmer has made some progress in detoxifying Labour from where it did in one of its worst performances since the 1930s at the general election, he's only got a 12-point drop in the proportion who say Labour is not ready for government, down from 59% to 47%. And he doesn't have any more people agreeing that Labour is ready for government than under Jeremy Corbyn. So a lot of work to do for the Labour Party if they are to have any chance of winning a general election anytime soon. And partly because of that, the polls in terms of voting intentions seem pretty much becalmed. Labour on 37%, the Conservatives on 45%, and the Lib Dems, with their leadership election not making any cut through at all, basically competing with the Greens. Lib Dems on 6%, Greens on 5%. When we think about the economy, pessimism abounds. It's similar to levels back in the Great Recession. 7 out of 10 people say that it's going to get worse over the next year, and I think they're almost certainly right, unfortunately, and they're pessimistic about chances of the economy and Britain as a whole returning to normal by Christmas. 89% not confident. If we tell them that the restrictions will all be removed and a significant return to normality as proposed by the Prime Minister, pessimism still remains. He has a small uplift in optimism from 10% to 18%, but the vast majority of us know that we're in this for the long haul. So pessimism, realism, you decide, but certainly people are not expecting things to go back to normal anytime soon. One thing that will delight some people and appall others is the possibility of change in America. And many people in Britain are unfavourable towards Donald Trump, 76% of the British public. So we're far more negative about Donald Trump than Americans are. And we're much more positive about Joe Biden. About 3 times more people say they're favourable to Joe Biden than to Donald Trump. But a lot of the British have yet to pay any attention to this race in America and just have no view one way or the other. But certainly they don't like Donald Trump very much. Elsewhere in this month's roundup, we've looked at the public preference for repair. of our existing infrastructure over build of new infrastructure. We've looked at the rise of virtual care during the pandemic, and we've looked at how you can grow a premium brand during a recession. And to help our colleagues in business and in government get ready for the future, we'll be running a series of 12 events this autumn, all free to air, looking at how research has changed and pivoted during the pandemic to be stronger, smarter and fitter in using both offline and indeed online techniques. And indeed on offline, interestingly, we found that face-to-face interviewing is now working pretty much as well as it did before lockdown, partly because so many people are at home. But a key change, of course, has been those online techniques. The first one's on the 7th of September, looking at how we can recreate real environments using virtual reality. Well worth a look at that series. Do sign up here. And that's all for now, folks. I hope you've enjoyed the roundup and talk to you very soon.